Thanks for stopping by Big Top Gaming. My name's Brian, and in this video we're going to be talking about the combat phase in Starcraft the Tabletop Miniatures game. So one of the unique features about the close combat phase, or the combat phase, sorry, is that only models or units that are engaged actually get an activation during this phase. So in this example here, Kerrigan isn't going to get an activation, neither are the Marauders because they are not engaged. Same thing with the Zerglings and the Queen here. They aren't engaged, so they won't be activating this turn. It's only going to be the unit of Zerglings here with the Marines, then the other set of Marines with the Roaches, and the Medics are also engaged. One of the things to note is that flying units are never considered to be engaged, so they will never participate in the combat phase. And passing also works differently in this phase. Everyone has to fight. There's no like, you can't pass like you normally would in the other phases. The passing will happen when a player has no more models to activate in the combat phase. So if you have less fights than your opponent, or the last person to fight, your last activated unit is what they would consider to be passing. Like, you get to that point and then you pass. So then that person would immediately become the first player. In this example, we're going to count the Zergling player, or the Zerg player, as having the first player marker. So they'll get to pick which activation they want to happen first. They could have the Marine player go first if they wanted to, but for our purposes, we're going to try and get these Zerglings to do some hits on the Marines quick. So when you select a unit to participate in close combat, you get to do a move with that unit. Kind of. It's called closing ranks. So you get to take a leading model and then move it 3 inches, and then you can zap all your other models within 3 inches. In the case of the Zerglings, 4 inches for them because of their swarm ability. You just can't move out of close combat, so you can't do a disengage with that move. So we'll say that the model we want to move is this little guy here. So we'll move him, make sure that I'm not landing on a Marine. I think I might have moved him a little bit. So then from here, I'll put up my little 4-inch bubble, and then the rest of the Zerglings that aren't engaged can make a move action or not move action. They'll zippy zap to get within combat range of all these. Now, I think the movement hierarchy is, if you can move into base contact with an enemy model, you have to. And then from there, you have to move to get within 1 inch at least. And if you can't do that, then you can move to being the closest to one of it's like they call it the supporting rank, where it's just somebody who's in base contact with someone who's within 1 inch. So one of the things to note about this process is that Zerglings, I believe the smallest base size in the game right now there might be smaller, but don't quote me on that. For this example, Zerglings have a 32 millimeter base. That's about 1.25 inches. So there's no way to double up like this to say that this guy would be 1 inch of this one. You could maybe thread the needle to get a guy here to be within 1 inch. We could check that real quick. And he's not quite there either. So you have to be really careful about how you position the models for close combat. But in this case, we won't have any issues getting everyone into some form of combat with these Marines. We might be able to get him a little closer and that guy a little closer. So now we have everyone in combat. All of the Zerglings are there. So I'm going to take down my little ring marker. I think I hit a 9 instead of a 0. And at this point, we then will determine who's all engaged. So engagement is models that are in base contact, or models that are within 1 inch of the enemy model, and then anyone who's in base contact with someone who's within an inch of the enemy model. So you can see here in this case, we have everyone who's either in base contact with the enemy, and then these last 4 Zerglings are at least they're in the supporting rank, so they'll be able to contribute to the fight since they are in base contact with someone who's within an inch. At this point in close combat, we get to choose which weapons we want to attack with the Zerglings. If they had multiple combat weapons, it's just like shooting, you can only choose one. Zerglings only have the claw attack, and that's going to be rate of attack 2. They target ground units, which the Marines are. They hit on 4s, they do damage 1, and then they have surge against light, which the Marines are as well, so they'll get that D3 surge dice on top of this, or die, sorry. So over here I've got all 12 of the Zerglings engaged. So I'm going to grab these 24 dice and give them a roll. So I'll pick out all the failures. This might take me a minute. We got another one here. All right, so the Zergling succeeded. What do we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 13 hits. So these would then go into the Marines wound pool for them to save against. Marines save on 5s. So of this pool, the Marines are failing, or no, they succeed 4 of those. And then we get our evades, but I believe we get the surge die before the evade, because surge will go right through armor, but I don't think it bypasses evade. So we'll get the D3 extra wounds that go in there. They've got 3 more to save against. So now they get to use their evade stat, and the Marines also have an evade of 5. So the Marines failed 8 saves total, and that would go to their wound pool. And each one of these Marines has 2 wounds each, so that would remove 4 Marines. So the Marines failed 8 of their evade saves, so that converts over to 8 damage, and we start removing Marines as casualties. There is a hierarchy for removing models. First, you have to start with models that are unengaged, so we'll go ahead and get rid of these 2. That deals with 4 of the wounds, and then we've got these 2. They'll get rid of the other 2, or the other 4, sorry. So now we have 2 Marines left that can fight back. At the end of this activation for the Zerglings, though, it would then pass over to the Marine player. And for the Marine player, they're going to opt to fight with this unit because there's really no reason to fight with these guys right away because the Zerglings have already done their damage. So we want to try and minimize the amount of damage we get over here. So it'll be the same thing with the Zerglings in terms of moving. These guys have their zone of influence is 3. So this guy's going to move to here, not get on anyone's base. And then the rest of them will be able to teleport within 3. And remember, if we can get into base contact, we have to. And from that, I think this guy will come over to here and sit on the center with these guys. His intention is supposed to be in base contact, but I think these guys are just a little wide, so they sit weird. I tell ya. Okay, you get what I'm shooting for here. These 4 Marines will be in base contact with the roaches, and then the 1 Marine behind is going to be in the supporting rank, as he's going to be base to base with someone who is within an inch of the roaches. So from the Marines, then, we have 2 different melee weapons. One of them, well, I guess one of them would be an upgrade. We'd have to put bayonets on them. But let's say these guys don't have the bayonet upgrade, that they just have the strike profile. So we have 6 Marines that are engaged. That means we get 6 dice. These are ground attacks, so they'll go into ground. They hit on 5s, they're damage 1, and they don't have any surge value. So you can kind of see that the Marines are not really wanting to be in close combat. I mean, they can shoot while engaged, which is great, but they're not fighting real well in close combat. So let's go ahead and roll these out. Oh, that's not what I wanted at all. All right, so they're looking for 5s here. They get a couple hits. These are going to go to the Roaches, who, if I remember right, have a 3+ save. They do. They have a 3+ armor save. So we'll roll their dice. And they end up taking 1, but they also have a pretty decent evade stat. They have an evade of 5. Well, I guess not decent. It just is what I thought for some reason it was 4. They have a 5 evade stat. So they get to check to see if they get a 5 here. And they don't. So that puts 1 wound on the Roaches, and they have 4 hit points per Roach. So these guys are still very healthy and up and at 'em. Now we get to the final phase of the game, and that's going to be the scoring and cleanup phase. There is a set of order here for things that happen, and it starts out with determining mission marker control. So mission marker control is what we do to score points in the game. I don't think I have a card pulled out for the game, but if we pull this one aside and rotate it the right way, if we were playing front lines, which I don't think that this one would be front lines, but scoring conditions say that you gain 1 VP for each controlled mission marker, and then 2 additional VPs if you gained control of it from an opponent this round. Then you score VPs equal to enemy supply destroyed this round. So in the case of the combats that we had here, where not a whole lot of stuff happened, the Zerglings would get awarded 1 point for destroying a supply, because the Marines went from having supply 1 to supply 0. Their supply 0 range is 1 to 3 models, and they currently have 2. That also, interestingly, means that the Zerglings have taken over this mission marker, because they are supply 1, as they didn't lose any models, and then the Marines are at supply 0, so they have more supply on this objective and take control of it. Kerrigan is uncontested over here, so she's got control of this mission marker. But then over here on this side, the Roaches and the Marines have pushed up against each other between the combat medics and the Roach attacks. So the control of this mission marker would go over to the Marines, because they have 1 supply in the full unit, or the 3-man unit of combat medics, and then 1 supply of the full 6-man unit of Marines. So that's 2 supply on this mission objective, and then the Roaches only have 1 at their 3 model count. So they do not have enough supply on this objective to take it over from the opponent. And then again, these 2 units are uncontested, so they would gain control of those mission markers. The middle mission marker might not be active for this particular one, but you get the point, whereas if this were an active blue marker, or whatever, red, that they would be controlling this marker here. From there, you would check to see if the game ends. In this case, we're very early in the game, so game ending condition would be this condition at the bottom here. The game ends immediately if someone leads by 10+ victory points. Also, the game can end if your opponent has no units on the table and no units on reserve, and that ends up awarding you 10 victory points essentially for tabling your opponent, you get 10 victory points. From there, you would just resolve any end of round effects. If there was anything like from your tactics cards or an ability on a unit, you would be able to clean those up. You also get to do the cleanup and refresh step. So that states you have to remove all tokens and markers, but you would keep the markers that have the stay in play keyword. Of course, you would keep damage markers because they're keeping track of wounds. You keep mission markers in play, faction indicators on mission markers, and then additionally, the fun part, which we haven't really touched on much in the videos that I've made, but you get to take all of your faction card or your tactical cards and flip them back over. So if we, as the Protoss player that doesn't exist on this table, used the quick strikes rule during that phase, we would flip it over to show that we've refreshed it and that it's ready to go again. The last piece that you do is determine initiative for the next round, and initiative is automatically awarded to the player who has the least amount of victory points. So in this case, if we consider this objective to be scoreable, the Marines would have gained they would have gained 3 points this turn. The Zerglings had killed here for 1, score this one, and score this one back here. So that puts them at a tie. In that case, the players would do a roll off to see who would get the first player token for the next round, and then we just rinse and repeat and keep playing. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. I've enjoyed making this series on the different phases and especially learning about things along the way. I feel like now, after having read through things and discussing them on the channel, that I'm much better equipped to be able to start playing on the physical tabletop when that comes around. And I look forward to making more videos about battle reports or other tactical pieces or faction overviews. There's just a lot to explore with StarCraft, even considering it has a smaller model pool, even though it's pretty wide for a launch game. But there's just so much more to do with this game, and I look forward to contributing more to the world of StarCraft content. Thanks for watching the video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.